Jenna.
Hi, Shelby.
How are you today?
Well, I'm already one coffee in, so we know how good I'm doing. One
We're a little
coffee
jacked
in,
up.
another to go. Nothing like some caffeine
I know.
to amp me up.
I've switched to wine.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Welcome back.
There we go. We haven't done a wine clink in a while.
Oh, God, we haven't.
Oh my goodness.
I know. I feel like we keep recording at other times. And
I know we do.
But we're going to have some, I think, fun drinks and episodes coming up. If you have good drink recipes you want to send us.
You know who I've seen that does great drinks with their episodes is Tipsy Book Reads.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I love that podcast.
Oh, it's so
They're so
good.
cute. They're so cute. Their podcast is so fun. And they always have cute drinks. I remember, I think they maybe did the Night Circus one and they did one with cotton candy in it.
Oh my gosh, cute.
It was so cute. Yes, we love that
adorable.
podcast. Highly recommend.
They are awesome. They're so awesome. Well, Jenna, what are we talking about today?
We are talking about Crescent City 1.
Oh my goodness.
We're talking about the House of Earth and Blood. My cover isn't on because I don't like reading hardbacks with a dust jacket on.
I don't either.
Yes, this is what we're talking about today.
This was a big one.
It's a big boy.
It was like almost exactly 800 pages.
Yeah. And unpopular opinion, but Crescent City is my favorite of the SJM books.
Oh my gosh.
I feel like everyone says Throne of Glass, which I do love, don't get me wrong, but I love Crescent City. It's like by far my favorite one, and I just can't get over it.
Oh, I love it so much. Why is it your favorite?
Well, okay, besides that I like Bryce, our main character, and this is a little older, and we're keeping the spoiler free for now. But yeah, Bryce, our main character, is a little bit older. She's 25, which I think I already like.
Oh, yes.
And
Same.
while some people don't love the like urban fantasy environment where they have like cell phones and stuff like that, I think
it's like modern.
I think I actually kind of like it because in some ways it feels closer to our world too.
Yeah.
And you just see so many fantasy books set in like medieval Europe kind of setting.
Yes. And so it's different.
Yeah, it's something a little bit different. And I realized on this read, it also kind of reads in some ways more like a thriller intermixed with a fantasy because you have like the murder mystery element of it.
Yes.
And so since I really like psychological thrillers and that type of book, I loved that aspect and I kind of forgot how much that plays into the story.
Gosh.
So yeah, that I just reinforced. I just freaking love Bryce. So she's
when
amazing.
we were talking about it last week, you called it Zootopia. And so now the entire time I was reading it, I couldn't stop thinking of it as a Zootopian murder mystery.
Yes, it is. Well, I mean, that Zootopia's got that too, right?
Yes.
Like, yes, it
gosh,
definitely is
so
just
funny.
like Zootopia with all the different creatures and whatever.
My gosh.
It's so cute. But yeah, so for me, obviously, that was 5 stars. A
I
strong
love
5 stars.
it.
I love this book. What about you?
Oh, I gave it a 5 stars too. So when I read this last year, I remember I read Crescent City 1 and 2 in like a 3-week time span.
Oh man.
I know. Well, because remember I was on that rotation where I literally did nothing.
Yes.
I did nothing the entire time I was there for that entire 3 weeks. So I had 8 hours every single day for 3 entire weeks where all I did was read books.
Oh, jealous.
I know. I mean, it was really nice, but also I kept like asking for things to do. And I was like, hi, what am I supposed to be doing? And they're like, we don't have any work for you. So I would literally sit at a desk and do nothing. And it was up in Loveland, which is like an hour away from us. It was great that I got to sit and read, but it was a very boring rotation.
Yeah.
And so I sat and read these. And when I first started this, I was like, what the heck? Like I liked it, but I didn't love it. I still gave it 5 stars, but this time like it was a true 5.
Yeah. I think a lot of people feel that way the first time they read it because there's so much information in the first 200 pages. And I've heard other people talk about that, you know, maybe the world building in Throne of Glass and ACOTAR originally was like a little bit less strong and that people wanted more of it. And then all of a sudden SJM put
like,
a ton right at the beginning of this one because this is the 3rd series she started, right? Like she wrote all of Throne of Glass had been released by now. And I think through Frost and Starlight of ACOTAR had been released before Crescent City 1.
Because then it was Crescent City 1, so House of Earth and Blood, and then Silver Flames. And then Hoseb.
Yep, correct. So I think that this one was when she started putting that one in too. And So she put in more building, but like I liked it. It's a lot.
Yeah.
There's a lot of characters to know.
Which we'll go through.
Right.
We're going to go through characters and objects and places. I feel like this episode is going to be more of like a book review rather than like a whole interconnection. And I feel like we can save that until like the later half because like there's a lot going on in this book.
Yeah. So if you haven't read Crescent City 1 or House of Earth and Blood in a while, this will be a really good reminder of who our key players are, kind of what some of the lore is that's in the background. But yeah, to your point, I think most of this episode, we're going to stick mostly to the Crescent City series. So if you haven't read Throne of Glass or ACOTAR, you can listen through this first part. And I think that we'll keep that safe. We'll try and cut it off a little bit there and save some of that for towards the end. Yeah. And we'll make it really clear when you should stop listening if you haven't read Throne of Glass or ACOTAR yet.
Right. I think so too, especially because there's so much going on in this one. There's so much going on in the second one. And right before the third one comes out, this will be a perfect review for that.
Yeah, only like 1 month until that book comes out. Less than a month.
I cannot even believe that.
Yeah, that's so exciting. I've been waiting for this for so long.
I know, because when they came out with the cover, everybody has theories on who's on that cover.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, so excited.
Yeah, we'll get to that later.
Yay! Well, before we get started with the book,
yes,
we have hit some really fun milestones this week, you guys.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Tell me, Shelby.
So the first one is that we hit 10,000 followers on TikTok, and now we're surpassed that. But that was
we've
really
blown
exciting.
through that. We're like past 12,000 now.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, really appreciate you guys' support on that.
That is so exciting. We also have over 10,000 streams and downloads on the podcast, which is insane, you guys. Over the past month, it's been like so many listens and views and stuff. I just, again, blown away. Blown away.
So appreciative.
So appreciative. How many followers did we hit?
On the subscribers?
Yes.
Yeah, we have more than 1,500 subscribers on the podcast. Too.
Holy crap, you guys.
That's really great. It was a really fun spot for us to hit, and we just really appreciate all y'all's support. And
yeah. We just love you guys. And something else that we hit on Friday is we were in the top 50 of arts podcasts on Spotify. Yeah. We were number 47, which like, holy crap.
To be formally ranked is pretty cool.
It was pretty cool when I saw that on there. It wasn't even like we got a notification about it. I just saw it in the analytics, and I was like, I'm sorry, what? Like, holy cow.
Yeah, that was really fun. I mean, we obviously work hard to try and bring you guys good content and to have some good theories to share, but it was really cool to see that you guys are enjoying it as much as we are.
And it's so fun. All of the people that we've met over socials, all the authors we've been able to work with, the books we've gotten, it's just... Cheers.
Cool. Cheers.
Oh, so exciting. There's just all of the comments, all of the likes, everybody DMing us. Like, it truly just does mean so much to us. So we just want to say thank you.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Thanks.
And we'll reiterate, like we do every episode too, if you have a book you really want us to cover, or if you're an author and you'd be really excited for us to try and talk about it, send us a DM or an email. We have all our contact information in our link tree.
We do. Yay! All right, let's get into
let's get into
Crescent City.
Woo!
Ooh. Where do we want to start, Jenna?
Oh God, that's a great question. I don't know. Should we start by just talking about some people? Should we talk about just the city? I don't know. What you think?
Oh, actually, yeah. Let's do city first. Let's do city first, and then let's do people, because we have a lot of people to talk about.
There's a lot of people. All right. Crazy. So remind me how I'm supposed to say it.
Lunathion. That's how I'm saying
it.
I think either way is totally fine.
Lunathion, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So we're split up into 4 houses, right? We've got the House of Earth and Blood, which is what this book is named after. And that one has, let me flip to where it is again.
Oh, yeah.
Shifters, humans, witches, ordinary animals, and many other whom... Sthona? I don't even know how I'm supposed to say that.
I don't know if it's Cathona or Sathona.
Sathona.
I don't know.
We butcher names. Don't worry about it, friends. Yeah. As well as some chosen by Luna is in House of Earth and Blood. We have Sky and Breath, which is the angels, fae, elementals, sprites, and those who are blessed by Solus, along with some favored by Luna. Many waters, which we don't get into too much in this book.
Just a little bit.
Yeah, which is rivers, spirits, mer, water beasts, nymphs, kelpies, nox, and others watched over by Ogenes. And then Flame and Shadow, which, again, we really don't talk about too much in this book, besides that they're the creepy ones.
Yeah, that's how I think about it too, like the creepy crawly.
Yeah, the creepy crawly. So we've got those 4 houses of Midgard. And my understanding is Midgard is kind of like, think the whole
like
country.
The planet.
Planet.
Yeah.
Sure. But then we're specifically like mostly just in this one city in this book. Mm-hmm. And within the city, there's a lot of different districts.
Right.
So we have the Wolves in Moonwood.
Yep.
And the Prime kind of manages that area.
Yep.
We have 5 Roses, which is the Fae. And so we have the Autumn King there. In the Bone Quarter, we have the Under King. We don't really talk too much about him in this book. We talk more in the next. Mm-hmm. In the Meat Market, we have the Viper Queen. And then in the Old Square, we have the Oracle. In the Blue Court, we have the River Queen. And then there's no leader for the humans in the Meadows.
Right. Which is interesting because everywhere else has like a leader, somebody who's like everybody kind of looks up to. Mm-hmm. And then you've got the humans that are just kind of ruling themselves a little bit. Mm-hmm. And in this book, we also find out that they are trying to rebel against everybody.
Right.
So
yes, because they have basically like no power in here because they like all of the magical beings are called Vanir. Is that how you pronounce it too?
I think, yeah.
Vanir?
Are the Vanir, what, I don't know.
Yeah.
Are they just fae or is it any magical creature?
I thought it was everything with magic that they kind of refer to that way.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure that that's true, but that's how I've interpreted it. It's basically everything not human.
Yeah.
Like everything else is how
they basically, they have like really, really long lifespans. Mm-hmm. They have powers. Mm-hmm. They are really hard to kill, which is really important in this book specifically. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That was a really great explanation of it. It's interesting because so that's all here in Lunatheon. Yeah. We also know that there are other parts of the world, but we don't know that much about them. We just know that there are the other parts. So like Pangera, that is where one of our main characters is from. That's where Hunt is from, right? And we know that like there are other people ruling those lands, but we don't actually know that much about them.
Yeah, it's other archangels that are kind of in charge of that, right? And the Asteri, or I think I always pronounce it wrong. What is it?
That's
right?
how I pronounce it. Asteri.
That the Asteri are these like 7, let's say, super beings that are kind of in charge of like everything. Right. Like they're a whole world above everybody in power.
And do we know where they are? Because all that I saw in the book was it said they were 6,000 miles away, but I don't think we know what the name of the location.
I don't know that I caught that either now that you say that. Yeah, so I'm not sure where they are. They don't physically show up anywhere in this book. They like are on video at one point, but we don't know where they are. And so there were 7 of them, and now there are 6 because now we can talk about hell maybe too.
Yeah, so, let's do that.
So one of the other planets is how it's kind of described is known as Hell, and there are 7 territories of Hell or 7 layers of Hell. There's the hollow, the trench, the canyon, the ravine, the chasm, the abyss, and the pit. Yes. And so basically like as each layer goes, it's supposed to get kind of darker and worse. Because
it's further away from the light is what we hear from a certain being.
So the only 2 layers of hell that we really know much about at this point is the chasm, which is the 5th layer. Yep. And that's where Adis is the prince of. And so
Adis.
Yeah.
Love.
And so Adis sometimes presents himself as a cat, which is like, and he's, I think, usually like pale white, eyes like blue opals. And so sometimes he appears there, and sometimes he appears as a like young boy with blonde hair and blue eyes. And so he has already connected with Bryce once before when she was younger, but we see him come up again in this book also. And he's clearly got something going on, but
So he appeared to Bryce first when she first went to, and we'll talk more about this, the Oracle later. But she had gone to see the Oracle. It's a ritual that happens with the like teenage fae human, and they basically go to see their future. And so when Bryce went the first time, he showed up randomly afterwards as a cat, and then when she summons him later on in the book, he actually showed up at somebody her age because he said he thought that it would be something that she liked. So he's clearly some sort of a shapeshifter.
Yeah, he's definitely a shapeshifter because he can present himself how he wants to. For
and
sure.
He said, "What? I thought you were gonna like this."
Right. Yes. So we have Adis, we know, is the Prince of the Chasm. And then the only other prince we really talk about in this book is the Prince of the Pit.
Yeah.
Who's known as the Star Eater. And so we only get a couple little bits about the Star Eater in this one. And the first is that he has consumed, clearly by the name, one of the Asteri. Is that how I pronounced it before?
Yeah.
I do this every time. The Asteri. So he is the only one that has like ever killed one of the Asteri. And so now there are only 6 instead of 7 of them. There's one seat that sits open. But we know that he's killed one of those. And we know that together with his power and one of the original Starborn princes.
Who was it, Peleus?
Yeah, that he created demons, like a new race of demons that could hunt Luna's horn.
And those are the Crystallos that we see here in this book.
Yes.
Did you find anything interesting on the number of levels of the pit or of hell?
Yeah.
Or of, what was it? The levels of hell, basically.
Yeah. The number 7 comes up so much in Crescent City.
Right.
There's 7 Asteri. There's 7 layers of hell. There's 49, which is 7 by 7 of the Asteri guards. There's 7 districts of like Lunathion.
Right.
There's like the number 7 for whatever reason comes up a lot. And let me come back to that in a little bit too. If you have more to say about it, I'm going to say one of my things about that number
and
for
I think
later.
I know exactly what you're going to say, so we'll save that for the end of the episode. But we already know.
And so that was something I noticed this time that I didn't the first. And I'm going to be curious if that number becomes
Well, when Bryce went to, she went to the meat market to try to go buy some of that obsidian salt. To summon Adis. She bought 7 pounds and 7 ounces of it. And that's when I first started to really pay attention to it because I've heard that there are patterns and everything with numbers and names and everything. And so I was like, that was not a coincidence.
Yeah. The salt being 7 by 7 is also, I thought, important. But it is just, it's mentioned so many times.
So many times.
So I definitely took note of that.
So one of the things when we were talking about like the Princes of Hell on page 468, it says Adis occupied the 5th level of hell, the chasm. He yielded only to 2 others, the Prince of the Abyss and the Prince of the Pit, the 7th and the mightiest of the demon princes, the Star Eater himself, whose name was never uttered on this side of the Northern Rift. And maybe we can keep this until the end of the episode, but it made me think of another series. We can keep it until later.
I was like, wait a second. Like, what am I not thinking of?
We'll talk about it later. So who else do we have in the series?
I'm trying to think. Okay, so that's kind of all I have about the Princes of Hell. Oh, and I think we learn, and I'm pretty sure it's in this one, that we learn that one of the princes is missing. I think it's like briefly mentioned that one of the princes of hell is missing, but they don't really get into it very much in this one. I think it's going to come
just
up
like
more in
mentioned.
Skybreath. Yep.
Oh.
So, yes. So we've got that too. And did you notice that the parts of the book were named after the levels of hell?
No, I did not realize that.
Yeah, like if you look, like part 1 is called the Hollow, part 2 is the Trench.
Wow. That's interesting.
So I didn't know if that was going to be significant for any reason either.
And who knows? It might still be interesting, or it might still be like valuable. Oh,
yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. So that's, already so much information, but
yes,
that's kind of what I've got about hell and this
it's clearly very important because it keeps coming up. So,
yeah. So we mentioned it briefly. Do we want to talk about Luna's horn, or we want to talk about people before we get there?
Let's do people first.
People.
Yeah.
All
Do
right.
people first. Who do we got first?
We got a lot of people in this book.
There's a lot of people to keep track of.
So many people. So like we said, this will be a good recap if you haven't read it in a while, because there's just so many characters to keep straight.
Yeah, we read it so that you don't have to.
That's a great way to put it. We read it so that you don't have to.
I mean, this is an 800-page book, and I know a lot of people are doing their rereads right now for Crescent City 3, but it was a lot.
It's a lot of information. Yeah. So
Who do we have first?
let's start.
Should we start with our main character, our girl?
Yeah. Start us off with Bryce.
Bryce freaking Quinlan. My goodness. So I have to say, when I first read it, she was not my favorite female character. Not at all. And it wasn't even like I like her. I was like, you're annoying. But this time,
Tear.
I know. And I felt so bad the first time I read it, because I was like, I don't really care. But this time, I loved her. And I think it's because we just reread ACOTAR. And so we were able to kind of pick out some different points about Feyre. And there were some things I liked and some things I really didn't like. And so this time I felt more connected to Bryce, because one, she's older. She has like these like urban partying habits, I guess I should say.
Yeah, she's a 20-year-old. Like she's like
Exactly.
in her 20s.
Right. And she's fun, and she loves to party and hang out with her friends, and she has, maybe I shouldn't say really good friendships, but she's got like these close people that she's close with, and it's not all about like the love interest. And so I really, really liked her this time.
Yeah, me too. Well, and kind of to your point, not just a party girl, but all just content to let the world believe the worst of her. That's what Hunt says about her.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's the best way to put that is she's willing to put on a show and come off as being ditzy and stupid,
Right.
kind of just to throw other people off and let them underestimate her. I love her in this book because
love her.
In the same way that I think you've talked about in other books where you appreciate when there's a very feminine character that like plays into their femininity and is still strong.
Yes.
And I feel like Bryce plays into the fact that she's like, hey, I'm hot. I'm going to dress in a skin tight dress and
Hell yeah,
show off
and
my
high
ass.
heels.
Yeah, because she's like, I know I look damn good.
Exactly.
And like she embraces that about herself.
She always makes herself presentable. Everywhere she goes, she puts on heels, she puts on a dress, she makes sure her hair is done. I think at one point they even said that her getting ready routine was never less than 2 hours.
That's what Hunt says. Yeah, it's so funny. So funny. So
my
I don't know. I always loved her, and I love that she is so loyal to her friends.
Yes.
Like kind of to your point, whether or not they deserve that loyalty always is maybe a different question, but she is so loyal to the people that she cares about.
Yeah,
like
she
almost
is.
to a fault. And I really appreciated that about her
I
from
did
the
too.
beginning. And I don't know. I've always loved her as a main character though.
Yeah, and maybe it was just because of the headspace, and like we talk about this all the time on the podcast. Sometimes you just have to be in a certain space when you read a book
Yes.
to either love it or hate it. And I feel like last year I was so busy with other things, and this was a brand new series, and I was so overwhelmed with all the things happening that I was like, oh, it's so different than anything I've read, and it's so modern that I didn't know how I felt. But this time I just,
Yeah.
I loved her. And I think coming right out of Silver Flames, because as we talked about in our Silver Flames episode, I love Nesta.
Yep.
And I love somebody coming out of their trauma and like staying true to themselves. And I feel like we really see that with Bryce here.
She comes out of her hole a little bit. Yeah.
She absolutely does. And she like owns it and wants to be better and grows. And I don't think I really saw that as prominently the first time I read it.
Well, I guess now that we're talking about her kind of coming out after being so depressed,
Yeah.
I feel like we should talk about Hunt.
Okay, also, when I first read this, I did not like Hunt.
Really?
Like, literally not at all.
So it's funny. I definitely remember liking Hunt.
Yeah.
And in this book, and then I remember thinking he was kind of boring in the second one.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to be curious to see what I think,
too.
because I think I actually liked him more on this read than
Me too.
I remembered liking him. Their banter is so cute.
Oh my God.
This is like Crescent City is the ultimate slow burn. It really is so good as a slow burn. Like there's so much just little heated tension, but like not really anything happens yet.
Yeah. But I love it though, because he like, it's clearly there. They both feel it and they both know it, but like he never pushes her. And I love that. I love that.
So
he never pushes her sexually, I guess I should say that. But he pushes her mentally.
Yes, which is good.
I love that.
I did too.
I love that he was like, you are eating breakfast.
Yeah, he
I don't
calls
give
her
a
out.
shit what you say.
Yeah.
He does. He calls her out and he always makes sure she's like on top of her shit. And I loved it.
I know. Oh,
The fact.
he's like, he's such a shameless flirt too. When
Oh my
like
gosh,
in a different
yes.
way than Reese is. Like, so we just read, you know, all the actor stuff. I feel like Reese is this shameless flirt and like, I don't know. He's always a little bit like sexual in his comments to her, or like kind of joking or whatever. But Hunt is just like casually smooth, throwing things into conversation.
And it was really smooth. And I was shocked by that this time.
I know. Well, especially because it was, I feel like he almost always waited. There was like almost a prompt from her every time. And he was like, oh, really?
He's like, oh, tell me more.
So yes, I was really just like, melting at Hunt this time.
Oh my gosh. On a more serious note, I loved that, like, as we were talking about their trauma, they both kind of brought each other out of the trauma, and they never really pushed, but it was like, I'm here if you want to talk about it. And it was said multiple times. And then finally both of them were like, well, this is why I do this, or this is why I do that. And this is why I feel a certain way about XYZ. And I loved that they both opened up to each other, and neither one of them really had somebody else to really open up to.
Yep.
And so I loved that it was like a casual and like a steady growth out of their trauma together.
Yep.
Oh my gosh.
Yes. I know. The reluctant allies to lovers is always a really favorite trope of mine. I love that. And I did really appreciate, because they kept being like, oh, I see you and I accept all of you kind of attitude towards each other.
Gosh. And I think Hunt even says that at one point. It was like, I see everything that you're giving me and I want it all.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Well, okay, so let's talk more about like Hunt in particular, though, besides the fact that Hunt has a foot fetish, which is
hilarious.
The part when he's like, oh, her red toes, I could lick every one of them or whatever. I was like, whoa, okay.
Hunt's a freak.
I died laughing at that one for sure. But so we know
funny.
He's got angular dark eyes. He's got gray feathered wings.
Which is interesting.
He participated in the rebellion and lost, was made into a slave.
Yep.
We know that none in living memory have possessed Hunt's ability to harness lightning at will.
Like, we know that other people can yield wind and rain and storms,
Right.
but not lightning specifically.
Right.
And his is like the most power they've ever seen.
Right. So we know that. We know that his mom was a low-level angel, but we don't know who his dad is.
Right.
And we know that his birth name was actually Orion.
Orion. And Orion, for people who don't know, means hunter, which is why they call him Hunt.
Is also known as Hunter, yeah.
Hunt Athalar.
Do you know the story of Orion, though?
No, I don't think I do.
Yeah.
Tell me, I know you love astrology.
Yeah. Well, so in like Greek mythology, at least, and there's a couple of variations of this story that you'll hear of Orion depending on like where, I don't know, like where in the world /time. But generally speaking, Orion lives a fairly tragic life in Greek mythology.
Oh, no.
And like the stories usually, two of the common stories are either that he was killed by his lover, Artemis, or that he was killed by a scorpion because of his lover, Artemis, that somebody else was mad about their love and killed him because of it.
No.
But like in pretty much every version of Greek mythology with Orion,
he
dies in a fairly tragic way.
And he's already living a very tragic life.
And so that makes me very nervous for Orion's future, for Hunt's
especially
future.
because of a certain thing that was said.
So yeah, so that makes me really nervous for his
gosh.
future. Yeah. And there's a lot of different variations of how you read it. And although one thing that I was like going to be kind of curious if it also plays out here is when he was like in, you know, the stories or whatever, when he was placed into the sky and they kind of felt bad for him. And so they put his hunting dogs in the sky with him as constellations. That's like Canis Major and Minor.
Right.
That I wonder if that's going to have anything to do with the wolves. Like, because he, like, I think in the next book, he becomes pretty good friends with Ethan.
I think so too, yeah.
So I just kind of wonder if that relationship is supposed to play off at all.
Interesting.
But, yeah, that makes me nervous for Orion.
Oh my gosh, that makes me really nervous.
His relationship with Bryce.
Oh no, oh no, oh no.
Yeah, because we know that the Oracle tells, let me see exactly what the Oracle said to Orion.
Yes, she says, I do, but where is it?
Oh, well, okay. So Oracle tells Hunt, and this is if you have the hardback, it's on 326. The Oracle tells Hunt, "You remind me of that which was lost long ago. I had not realized it might ever appear again." Mm-hmm. And then she says, "Keep for your own good, basically, keep well away from Bryce Quinlan."
Yeah, she says, "Do yourself a favor, stay well away from," which, what?
Yeah,
because we don't find out in this book or the next one the hell that means.
We're gonna find out.
We gonna find out.
SJM has said in some of her like interviews and stuff that we should be worried for Hunt in the next book. We'll wait to talk too much about that until the next book, but yeah,
goodness
just
gracious.
I'm nervous for him. So
speaking about Hunt and like one of the things that happened, so like as a slave, one of the things that he has to do is for one of the archangels that he is now like underneath, so Micah owns him, and he has to pay back the debts from the rebel war. Mm-hmm. And so he has to kill like 2,000 something people.
Oof. And like brutally too.
Yeah, like Micah will say, you can't use a gun.
Yeah.
You have to basically
and you have to drag it out.
Yeah. Oh my God. Well, he hates it. Mm-hmm. Absolutely hates it. And like he always comes back a darker person, and they call him the shadow of death.
Yeah. So sad.
So I wanted to kind of talk about the shower scene.
Oh
my God.
I was sobbing.
I was sobbing. I forgot how sad it was.
Yeah. So basically the shower scene, if you're not remembering, partially through the book, this is like a good ways into it. Hunt basically does something to piss off Micah, who owns him. And so as a result, just to kind of remind Hunt that he doesn't get to do whatever he wants, Micah orders him to pretty brutally murder 3 people.
Yeah.
And Hunt is just a shell of a person when he comes back from that. Like he's just, because it like hurts him so much inside to have to do that, just like tears a part of his soul every time he does. And so he comes back to the apartment, and Bryce sees him, just like can tell that there's multiple people's blood on there. She like
says his name multiple times. He doesn't respond. And he just like goes into the shower. Yeah.
And he's in there for a really long time. Yeah. And so Bryce gets a little bit worried, and she goes in, and he has the shower just like turned up so hot that he's like literally scalding himself.
Well, blisters and one of the things we forgot to say about the Fae is that they like naturally heal themselves.
Yeah. Well, not just Fae, a lot of the.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. A lot of the creatures.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so when he has the shower turned up so hot, he's literally like burning himself and then healing as it's burning.
Over and over and over again. God. Yeah. And so then she basically comes in and like cleans him up and
one of my favorite tropes.
I know.
Oh, when she normally it's the other way around, and so he's like washing her hair. She's washing his hair. She's washing his body, and it's like not sexual at all. It's just like comforting and taking care of him. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was like a really great personal growth for both of them, because now she's in a more nurturing role, and he is allowing himself to be taken care of.
Yeah, like he's accepting of that. Right. He's like willing to let someone help him and see him like that. Oh, yeah, that is. Except for I was really mad that he brought her back to her bed halfway through the night. Okay. I was like, why did you do that?
Yeah, I was like, you were perfectly comfortable snuggling with her all night, and then I didn't understand it either. To me, that was weird. Yeah. Especially if you're supposedly together, I'll say.
Yeah, I was mad about that.
Yep, I didn't love that. Oh, gosh. All right, what do you think about his betrayal?
Oh, yeah. I remember being a lot madder about it the first time that I read it. I don't know why I didn't feel as mad this time. I feel like I should have.
Yeah.
And maybe just because I knew I don't know, knew how it played out, then it made me less mad.
Yeah.
But I was definitely madder the first time I read
Yeah?
it. What about you?
I think this time I was still just as mad.
Yeah.
I knew it was coming, but I forgot what was leading up to it and how much we didn't know about what Hunt was doing.
Yeah.
And so to me, this time it hit just as hard, which I was a little shocked by. I feel like some things I wasn't as shocked by, but that was still one I was like, I really just didn't like. And but the aftermath of it, oh my God, I was sobbing.
Yeah. The one thing that I did notice more this time since I was looking for it is how much Hunt tries to shift Bryce away from looking into synth.
Yeah.
I don't know if you got that too, but like especially in the maybe 20 pages before all that happens.
Yep.
He's always like this on 541 of the hardback. He's like, oh, the synth probably has nothing to do with this. We shouldn't.
I remember thinking that was pretty odd that he was shifting her away from it.
And he was really
especially because
pushy about it.
Yeah. And I didn't remember like how it all exactly played out. And so I was like, why are you like, you should be looking into this. What are you doing? So I remember thinking that was odd. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So I did notice that more this time. I think I just felt worse for Hunt this time. And so a little bit I understood how desperate he was. Like the first time, I think I was way more 100% on Bryce's side. And I guess that's one thing I should mention about why I think I really like Crescent City, and in some ways like Crescent City more than other books. While I really like a first person from, or, you know, like just from our main character's point of view book, which at least the beginning of Throne of Glass and the beginning of ACOTAR is like that. I think like we don't get from Reese's point of view, or we don't get from anybody else's. And
for a while.
Yeah. And this one, we like are seeing it kind of from Hunt's perspective right from the beginning. We're seeing them go back and forth. And I actually think I really enjoyed that.
I did too. And I felt like since Silver Flame that we had just read was also in like a third person, what do they call it?
Flipping back and forth. Yeah, I guess.
Like power above everybody's watching everything. I think I really do like that. As much as I like hearing Feyre and Reese's point of view, I think I like the all-knowing.
Right. Like more of a third party talking. Right. Yeah. So I liked that too. And I think because of that, it made me feel for Hunt a little bit more in this one, which just, I was surprised by that though. Because on the other books that we've reread recently, on the second read, I've been more mad about all the betrayals. And for whatever reason,
this one was a little different.
I wasn't as mad. Yeah.
Interesting. One of the things though, so after the betrayal, basically Micah, who owns Hunt, is like, oh, we have to, like, Sabine, who is like the leader of the wolves, basically says like something else. Oh, that was before when his wings got cut off.
Yeah. Well, so we have, let's talk about Sabine. Okay. So Sabine is the prime apparent for the wolves. So the prime of the wolves, who's like a very old man, is still alive, but maybe not 100% with it.
Yeah.
He's a big fan of Bryce's.
Oh, he loves
Bryce. But Sabine hates Bryce. And part of why she hates Bryce is because Bryce was best friends with Danica.
Danica Fender.
And Danica is Sabine's daughter.
Right.
And so kind of from the beginning, Danica is like, seems more clear that Danica should step in after the prime passes away.
They were going
instead of her mom.
Touch her as the prime instead of Sabine.
Right. Which Sabine was pissed about because obviously she's her mom and she's older and feels like she has that right. But Danica just always had more power and was better. And so people liked her more. But she got into a lot of trouble while she was growing up. She just like constantly getting into stuff. I thought it was interesting.
Her and Bryce.
Yeah, that they noted that she got into lots of trouble until 5 years before she died.
I did not catch that.
Yeah. And so
interesting.
I'm going to be curious to pay attention in the next book if that 5 years lines up with when she went to CCU with Bryce or with another event that we know we're going to find out about in HOSAB, which I won't talk about yet. But yeah.
Interesting.
So that was interesting. And it was the Oracle that told her through love all is possible. I didn't remember that
I didn't remember that either.
Where it came from. So also going to put that in my back pocket for the next book. And she was the one who stole Luna's horn.
Yes. Yep. Oh my gosh. And she Do we want to talk about what she did with Luna's horn?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Do we want to talk about Luna's horn in general?
Yeah. Let's talk about Luna's horn in general. Let's do that first.
Okay, so Luna's horn. Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Luna's horn was, so it's like an item. It was originally in possession of Peleus.
Yes. Yep. He was the
first Starborn prince.
Right.
And it was said to have been forged in the Fae's home world, but then named for the goddess in the new world.
Interesting.
And yeah, so it was broken many, many years ago. And so it was sitting in Luna's temple, and somebody stole it. And so it kind of throughout this book, when we say it's like a murder mystery kind of thing, right, besides trying to figure out who Danica's murder is, they also are trying to figure out who stole Luna's horn from the temple.
And where it was.
And where it is.
And so we realized in the very end of the book that, which I did not remember that Micah was the one that figured it out, that he was the one that was like, oh, as soon as we figured out all these things that happened and why, he figured out that Danica, and like right before she died, which makes me think she knew she was going to die.
Oh, yes.
It was so odd.
I think she knew she was going to die too.
Like the days before, she was telling Bryce she loved her. She was doing all these things to set Bryce up for success in all the things that are going to happen. And it was just wild. And so Micah said, the horn will open a portal and allow me to summon an army to decimate the human rebels and end their wanton destruction. And so he basically just wants to open a portal with it. Mm-hmm. But I think it has other powers too.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll see, I guess, what all powers it has besides opening doors to other worlds.
And we know that it can only be used by the Starborn.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what did you think of this time reading it about how much Danica hid from Bryce?
Oh my gosh. If you remember the first time I read it, I hated Danica. And I was like, she's the worst friend ever. Oh my gosh. But now that I'm kind of seeing that I think Bryce just has this like faulty loyalty to people, I feel like I hate Danica a little bit less. And that I really do see that maybe Danica was still trying to set her up for success and she was trying to do the best that she could.
See, that's so
You felt
funny.
the opposite?
Yeah, so I guess
God.
you were more mad about Hunt's betrayal.
Uh-huh.
I was more mad about how much Danica was keeping from Bryce, especially because like the fact that Bryce shared with her and only her about her Starborn gift, which was such a big deal.
Such a big deal.
And Danica had so much shady shit that she was dealing with.
And we only learned about half of it.
We only learned with a little bit in this one.
Yes.
And just as it dribbles out, it feels like there was this whole second life that Danica was living without Bryce.
Yep.
And I was actually a lot more upset by that this time because Danica knew how much Bryce relied on her and relied on their relationship and like that, how important that bond was. And because it's so clear that Danica knew something was coming, right? Like the file folder or whatever in the flash drive is literally named Bryce with like for her, where those videos are. And I don't know, there's so many things that she tucks away specifically for Bryce.
And clearly just never told her about it.
It just kind of made me more mad because I don't understand why she couldn't share that information. I think that's the biggest thing is, I mean, I get that it was risky, but so was knowing that Bryce was Starborn.
Yeah.
So I don't understand what reason Danica had to not tell Bryce. And I was a lot more upset by that this time.
I think the last time I got more upset in the second book.
Yeah.
And so we'll see if I stay that way because this time I think I knew that I was super upset the first time and why. And so this time I maybe was looking for other things. I was pissed the last time I read it because obviously like we're all here for Bryce and everything. And she just has the world's worst friends.
Kind of, yeah.
It's so sad.
I know. Well, except, I mean, I do have to say her scene with Juniper on the roof. So Juniper is the friend that's a fawn.
Yep, she's a fawn.
Yeah.
And she's a dancer.
Yeah, she's the dancer in the ballet. And it was kind of irritating maybe that like how Juniper talks to her when she misses the dance lesson. But at the end of the day, Juniper has always been there for Bryce when she needed it. And so when Bryce was feeling that depressed and Juniper could sense it, she like came running over, kept Bryce on the phone without really letting her know what was going on, and basically like kept her from jumping off the roof.
But okay, devil's advocate, you only come when you're needed. Like, to me, that was super shitty. It was like true. Bryce had clearly been acting out and asking for help and like needed somebody, and nobody was there for her until Bryce is like, I'm gonna end it. And then she's like, oh wait, no, don't do that. Like, she had not seen her before that. She wouldn't hang out with her. She would rarely answer her calls. And so it's like,
I don't know that it was that she would rarely hang out with her and answer her calls, but I do understand that she was so in her own life and what she was focusing on that she maybe was leaving Bryce behind a little bit. I can see that for sure. Yeah. And I think Fury is maybe more the one that we should be guilty of.
Oh yeah. Oh, I have my thoughts on
Fury is the one who's ignoring Bryce's calls and just not participating at all.
Let's talk about Fury.
Let's talk about Fury.
Oh my God. How did you feel about Fury?
Man, she's so mysterious.
I know.
We know so little about Fury. We know she made the drop at 21.
Yep.
But it doesn't sound like she chose to do that.
No, it
Someone
doesn't.
kind of forced her to make the drop. We assume she's a merc, but we don't really know.
Yeah.
No one really knows what Fury does, except that we know that everyone is terrified of her.
Everybody's terrified of her. She shows up at the summit.
Good enough to be in the third circle of the summit.
I'm sorry, what?
So clearly, like, fairly high up to be in the third of 7 circles at the summit.
This deserves another glass of wine.
So that was, I don't know.
Yes.
Yeah, that was really weird. We get a very minimal amount about her appearance. We know she has long onyx hair, light brown skin, deep set chestnut eyes.
And people say she's small, but I don't remember them actually saying that in this book.
I didn't actually catch them saying that anywhere in this book. But yeah, so we know very little about what she's doing, except that she spends a lot of time not in Manathion. She's like out somewhere else.
Somewhere.
We don't really know where.
We don't know who she works for.
Yeah. Yes. I don't even know who she works for or like what side she's on. They mentioned that too. Like no one really knows anything about it, what she's doing. But everyone is terrified of her. She has a gun with silver wings on it that was apparently recognized by Bryce when they're on the boat, on the barge.
Oh my gosh, I forgot about that.
Yeah, I don't know if that's going to be significant at all, but she's specific.
Gun with silver wings on it.
Yeah, but Bryce specifically recognizes that as Fury's gun before she even recognizes that it's Fury's there. And she says that bad things happen when she gets close to people. And that's why she stayed away from Bryce, because she felt so guilty about that. Like she was the one who gave her drugs that night and stuff. And like, she feels guilty about her involvement there. And that's all she mentions. It's just bad things happen when she gets close to people.
You know, even if she says that, I freaking hated her throughout this book.
Same.
And especially towards the end when she's like, I know I ignored you for those 2 years. I know that you needed me. I know, but like I was dealing with my own shit and like I couldn't get out of my own shit to like help you with yours. But to me, it was just like Bryce had reached out again and again and again and again and never got a response, never got a call back, and still kept reaching out. It reminds me of from Silver Flames, like the keep reaching out your hand.
Yeah.
And Bryce does that, and she clearly keeps, like she still tries to hear from Fury and like message. She doesn't get anything in return. And to me, that was just like 2 years. 2 years.
That was horrible. I really hated Fury.
Yeah, I did too.
Yeah. But I do want to know more about her.
Oh, me too.
Me too. You know who else I really want to know more about? Who? Jessica.
Oh my gosh, same.
I kind of forgot how interesting Jessica is. So, because we do kind of, I don't know, hear a lot about her, but we don't really know her background. So we know she's about 400 years old. She's an enchantress. She was born a witch, but defected to the House of Flame and Shadow. And we don't know why.
So does that mean she's now in the Flame and Shadow?
She's a member of the House of Flame and Shadow. And she reports only to the Underking.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Flame and Shadow suited her well. She possessed an arsenal of spells to rival any sorcerer or necromancer in the darkest of the houses. She'd been known to change people into animals when irritated.
That was really funny. She threatens to turn Bryce into so many animals, which I just find so funny because Bryce just like brushes it off.
I found it so funny too. And last
really
time I
funny.
remember thinking it was weird. And this time I thought it was so funny.
I thought it was so funny this time too.
And did you notice that in the library there was all these little creatures running around?
Well, they're in cages. Yeah, she has all the animals in cages. And Bryce is like, I don't want to know if that was a person that pissed her off.
Oh my gosh, that was so funny to me. But why? Why did she defect to Flame
We
and
don't know
Shadow?
that. And Hunt, the only time that they really talk about it is like Hunt in a passing thought is like, oh, it must have been like, it had to have been for something bad that she switched. That's like all he really says or acknowledges about it.
Because House and Flame and Shadow is like the creepy crawlies, like the vampires.
The creepy crawlies, the reapers,
the
and
knocks, and yeah.
all the bad things. And only report. So she only answers to the Underking, which is the ruler of the Bone Quarter. And
we'll learn more
yeah,
about the Underking in the next book, but I don't remember learning more about Jessica.
yeah. But so the only thing we know too of her goals is she's protecting the Great Library of Parthos, which is all of these like books and long dead languages and stuff, that all these special books that are in, let's say, this vault in the basement of her library of
oh my gosh,
what's it called? What's the word I'm looking for? Where art is on
gallery
gallery.
archives.
Yeah, the archives or whatever,
Yeah.
and as a part of the gallery. And so they're secret enough. She doesn't want the archangels to know, and she doesn't want the Asteri to know, obviously, what's down there. But when it looks like Bryce is going to be murdered, and even then she's like, someone's got to save the books. Like she really cares about that. So for being so bad that she would defect from House of Earth and Blood to Flame and Shadow, I feel like that like switch had to have been something around the part that it was like to protect that history there.
Very interesting. Well, because we know that Parthos is, Bryce thought it was a mythical land. And she was like, oh, isn't that the stuff of like fairy tales? Like people just talk about it. And then we find out that no, it was a real thing. And these are the ancient libraries. And so the ancient libraries were from the humans from 15,000 years ago.
Yeah, an interesting year to note. We'll note that year.
Yes. And so they've been saving these libraries for years and years and years and decades and centuries. And it's just so crazy to me because it's like, why?
Yeah, so we know it's briefly mentioned in this book that humans and animals, like regular animals, occupied Midgard 15,000 years ago before the crossing. And so the crossing is what they call when like the Vanir came through the Northern Rift to Midgard.
Interesting.
And so we know, it again briefly mentioned, that there's 2,000 years of history of humans and animals before everything else came. And that like the library, the Great Library of Parthos, is supposed to be like from that time. And Micah mentions that it has information in it basically saying, it sounds like a how to defeat the Asteri, or like why the Asteri might not be the ultimate power or something to that point, and that's why they've been trying to just like shove it down and make sure people don't think it exists.
Right.
And so there's books that either are not supposed to exist at all anymore, that they're supposed to have all burned out, or that the only copies were supposed to be with the Asteri. And there's other copies in this library in the archives that Jessica has. And a lot of the books are somewhat sentient and like try to jump off the shelves.
I was gonna bring that up next.
Yeah.
It reminds me of the books that we just read. So in ACOTAR, and can we get into some? Should we wait? I guess we'll just talk about the sentience of the books.
Yeah, let's just talk about the sentience of the books for now.
Basically, they like have their own thinking they feel like they're kind of alive, and so they would jump off shelves. They would like
they're trying
talk
to escape
people.
Yeah,
they're trying to get out. And one of our other friends that we'll probably talk about in a second was always like, oh, the books are whispering to me, like, oh, this one said this, don't use that book, it said this. And so that was so funny to me.
Yeah, so should we talk about Lily, about
Lahaba? That was another thing that hit me so much harder this
Sobbed.
time.
Oh my god.
Sobbed.
My friends are protecting my friends. My friends are with me and I'm not afraid. Oh my god. I was sobbing during that scene.
I was too, and like part of me is like, I'm not crying that hard. My shirt was soaked from the tears falling off of my face.
Yeah, that was so sad.
So Lahaba is a fire sprite.
She is, yeah.
So she's considered one of the lowers. And so you have
because
different
of
classes.
the rebellion.
It's so odd because she was so funny. Oh my god. Like her, like, I don't wear clothes.
And her like washing trash TV all the time.
Oh
and
my
stuff
god.
Was so cute.
Fangs and bangs. Don't call it that.
It was so cute.
She was just so sweet, and she always checked in on Bryce.
Oh yes.
To make sure she was okay.
She was such a good friend to Bryce. And I thought it was so sweet when Bryce comes back and is like, I'm so sorry I haven't been a good friend to you always, but that you are important to me. Yeah. Oh yeah, their relationship was so funny. And so Lily is supposed to be, she's like
Lily and BB.
Yeah. She's owned by Jessica to basically keep the books in check. Because she's literally fire. So the books will listen to her because she could just burn them up if she wanted to.
Which is so funny because we learn later that there are enchantments on the books. And so they can't burn up, but they do listen to her.
They do listen to her.
And it's so funny in like conversations when Hunt is there and she's like, oh, I have to go check on those damn books.
She loves Hunt. She's such a little flirt.
It was so cute. She's like, you fought with my grandmother, and and she would always like give these little flirty like remarks and stuff.
Oh, she's so cute. But yes, that scene where she sacrifices herself to give Bryce just a couple more seconds is so sad.
That was so sad. And like throughout that whole time, she was like already coming up with the plan to lock Micah in that bathroom. And so she had like gone over there, set everything up. And then she like had this entire plan in place while Bryce was trying to get out of the hold. Oh my God.
Yeah, we'll come back to that scene, I think, in a second when we can talk a little bit more about some spoilers for other episodes or other books too. Oh, I'm trying to think if there's anything else we want to talk about. Maybe before.
Any other people?
Yeah,
see, we kind of already talked about Micah.
We maybe just like some other names to keep in mind, like as we go into the future ones. So Philip Briggs, he's the one who leads the Human Rebellion.
Yep, and
he's trying to bring it from Panjira to Velbara, but he was busted by Danica.
He was. Yes, and then we find out he was wrongly accused of killing Danica.
Right, but rightly accused of like trying to blow up the White Raven and some other things that he did. So he's kind of keep him in our back pocket. We also meet Victoria briefly in this one too. She's a wraith who participated in the rebellion, and as a result of that has been confined to a body, and then at the end of this book is basically like put into a box and sent to the bottom of the ocean.
Her essence. Oh
yeah. We've got Sandriel, who was an archangel and the governor of the Northwest area, and he was Shahar's. Yeah, she gets killed by Hunt.
Oh yeah, okay. Duh.
Yeah.
Duh.
So she's Hunt's former owner.
yes,
and Shahar's sister, and Shahar is the one that Hunt loved, and so she's killed by Hunt in this book. And then we have Micah, who again was an archangel, was the governor appointed by the Asteri, but he was killed by Bryce in this book and vacuumed up, baby.
Oh my God. That scene was it was even funnier this time.
Chef's
even funnier this time when she just like is casually just vacuuming him up. I'm picturing what it's looking like on the TVs.
Yeah. Oh my God, it's so great. I love that scene. That just was casual.
So funny.
God, this is so funny. So so we used to have 10 at the beginning of this book. We had 10 archangels. We're down to 8, as now we know, because we just killed Micah and Sandriel. So that's
so somebody's gonna have to step up and be an archangel for the Valvar.
Are they? I don't know. The only thing we know about the archangels is that there's no predicting where the extra strength comes from. It could come from like any family line. Sometimes it's bred in kind of through the Asteri forcing stuff, but it can also sometimes show up in low-born families and they don't really know how or why.
Oh my gosh.
So I don't know
did
that there's
catch
anything that says that there has to be 10 of them. That just happened to be how many there were. And now there are 8. So there's fewer.
Very interesting.
Yep.
I didn't even catch that part.
Yeah. So we've got them. Therian, he's the Myrrh that we meet briefly in here. We'll wait to talk too much about him until Hosab, but he's the captain of intelligence for the River Queen. And then, I won't really talk about like Pollux or Regulus or anything like that.
Later.
But Rune Dannon,
I was going to say
of the Valvaran Fae. Yeah.
I was just gonna say, who have we talked about? Rune. Every time they mention him in the first half of the book, they always say Rune Dannon, Crown Prince of the Valvaran Fae. Every single time. I wrote it in the book, cue TikTok music.
Yeah, I love that. So
gosh.
again, I won't talk about him. I'll talk about him a little bit in this
He
one.
was really prevalent in this book, actually.
Yeah. And so we know he's the crown prince. He's got a lot of piercings. He's got dark hair, the shaved one side. He has magic more like those of his kin on the island.
How did they describe his
Avalon.
eyes?
We'll get there, I guess. But yeah, he's got shadows and telepathy as powers, which come from his mother's side.
From Avalon.
Yep, from the Isle of Avalon. And he's Bryce's half-sister, or half-brother, sorry.
Yes. Rune Dannon. I didn't remember him being as prevalent in this book as he actually was.
Same.
I also did not remember that he was a shadow daddy.
Oh, I did remember that.
Oh my God. Because I remembered he did the mind speaking. Mm-hmm. But for some reasons, the shadow did not stick with me. Mm-hmm. And I was like, dang.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I feel like at that point for me, maybe that's about the point where we can get into some spoilers for other things.
Okay, so now, wow.
Whoa.
I'm sorry. I did not mean to do that. I was just trying to clap. On that note, so now that we've talked about the characters and we've talked about like what Lunathian looks like and some of like the concrete stuff from House of Earth and Blood, now we're going to pause here, catch back with us next episode because we're going to get into some theories for other worlds.
Right. So there's a lot more like what actually happens here and some theories that we have about characters or events that might be coming up. That will spoil other books. So watch for that next week.
We'll see you guys next time. Bye, guys.